1 in 4 Canadians has depression significant enough to warrant treatment at some point in their life. Depression is that big of an issue. As a matter of fact, according to the World Health Organization, depression is the leading cause of disability worldwide. Take a moment to let that sink in. The single greatest cause of disability. It isn't cancer, heart disease, diabetes, it's depression. Hi everyone, I'm Trevor Sullivan, and today I'm going to discuss part 1 of a 2-part step-by-step plan for managing depression. Before we get started, I invite you to subscribe to this channel. And if you're watching on YouTube, click the alert notification. That way, when we make more videos like this, you'll get notified. Over 300 million people worldwide struggle with depression. That's something, given that there are almost 8 billion people in the world. Despite the prevalence of depression being so high, there's hope. Depression is highly treatable, and science has uncovered strategies that are effective. But before we get to them, let's establish a working definition for depression. Typically, when looking at definitions for psychological disorders, we start with the DSM, which is a Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders, and essentially the final word on mental health diagnoses. For our purposes, I'm going to borrow a relatively brief definition of depression from the American Psychiatric Association, as they've summed it up quite wonderfully here. Depression, also known as major depressive disorder, is a common and serious medical illness that negatively affects how you feel, the way you think, and how you act. Fortunately, it's also treatable. Depression causes feelings of sadness and/or a loss in activities once enjoyed. It can lead to a variety of emotional and physical problems and can decrease a person's ability to function at work and at home. And to further borrow from the APA, these are the common symptoms of depression. Feeling sad or having a depressed mood, loss of interest or pleasure in activities once enjoyed, changes in appetite that lead to weight loss or weight gain that's unrelated to dieting, trouble sleeping or sleeping too much, loss of energy or increased fatigue, increase in purposeless physical activity such as hand wringing or pacing, or slowed movements in speech that'll be noticeable to other people, feeling worthless or guilty, difficulty thinking, concentrating or making decisions, and thoughts of death or suicide. For a diagnosis of depression, these symptoms must last for at least 2 weeks and not better be accounted for by another medical condition. Typically, a depression measure, such as the Breck Depression Inventory, is used to evaluate these symptoms and their severity. Now that you have a better understanding of what depression is, let's take a closer look at depression treatment strategies. For my first strategy, I encourage you to start with a plan for the day. When mood is low, there's a tendency to get stuck and do the bare minimum of what needs to get done. And if nothing needs to be done, well, probably very little is going to happen until you feel like it. If you fall prey to this way of thinking, you could be waiting an awful long time. Not to mention, there's a chance that your mood could dip even further. Instead, I encourage you to make a plan for the day before you go to bed at night. It doesn't need to be overly ambitious, but it should provide some structure to your day. If you're working or going to school, this will help you to maintain structure and routine. If not, it's likely going to be harder to get moving. One of the worst things that can happen with mood is sitting idle for too long. And there are studies that show that we're happier when we're busier. As Isaac Newton said, a body in motion tends to stay in motion. And if you're inactive for too long, it's very hard to get moving again. The body was meant to move, and the mind was meant to think. And both body and mind should be active fairly consistently. For my second strategy, it's not very exciting, but it's important to take care of the basics on a consistent basis. The basics are never fun or very sexy and often overlooked, but they're very necessary and definitely not worth skipping over. And the basics I'm referring to are drinking water, eating regular meals, and getting exercise. I'm going to start with a quick analogy here, just to emphasize my point. If you're a car, yeah, I know it's a little unusual to be compared to a car, but I'm sure you've been called worse. You wouldn't run well if you didn't have oil, gas, transmission fluid, and so on. People are no different. To think that we can run properly and feel well without our main fuel sources, water, food, and air, which we get abundance of when we exercise, is pretty unrealistic. Let's take a quick look at each of these areas and see what's needed to maintain and promote a healthy mood. First, there's water. So understated, yet so important. Up to 60% of our body is water and even 31% of our bones. Not surprisingly, having adequate water intake and avoiding dehydration is important if you hope to function properly. The amount of water you need varies from person to person, depending on the demands of your daily life, but according to the National Academics of Science, Engineering, and Medicine, adult males should take an average of 3.7 liters per day, and adult women should drink almost 2.7 liters per day. That's a lot of water needed to function properly. And if you're relatively active, you need to adjust that figure upwards. And at the risk of getting too high up on my soapbox, be sure to get your water from the cleanest sources possible. Personally, I'm a fan of both reverse osmosis and distillation. Next on our list of basics is food. Without digging too deep into this topic, our purpose here is just to look at food as an energy source that'll help you function and feel better. Keeping that in mind, you want to consume multiple small meals throughout the day. Diets high in fiber and fruits and vegetables are also important. And it's crucial to avoid inflammatory foods, as these foods can make feelings of depression worse. For a final basic area, there's exercise. The general rule of thumb with exercise is that it's pretty much great for everything. And when it comes to mood, it all helps. To put it simply, there are studies to show that you just need to get moving in some way, shape, or form to benefit mood. However, the more demanding the exercise, the greater the impact it has on mood. So if you aren't struggling with motivation or energy levels, it's beneficial to do something that's more taxing. For my third strategy, I suggest chunking time to get started. So you know you need to get moving, but simply put, you don't want to move. What do? Chunk time. And the self-talk around chunking time should go something like this. I just need to do whatever the task is for 5 minutes. After that, if I don't feel like it, I can stop. But once you get started, momentum will be on your side, and you'll be much more likely to keep going. On the other hand, dealing with too big of a chunk of time can feel overwhelming and is more likely to shut you down. But what if you can't even commit to getting started at all? It's important to dig into your self-talk a little bit further. And chances are, what's going through your mind is something like this. I just have no energy or motivation to do anything. Once I feel a bit better, I'll do whatever the task is. And herein lies the brutal truth about mood. If you wait until you feel good to do something, you'll probably be waiting a while. In actuality, you need to commit to doing whatever it is you need to do, even if it's for a short period of time, if you want to begin making improvements in your mood. So with that in mind, your self-talk could be a little bit more along the lines of this. I might feel tired and unmotivated, but if I just get going and do something, the worst thing that's going to happen is that I still feel tired and unmotivated. And at least I'll have done something and I'll feel less guilty about not doing enough. For the fourth strategy, I want you to be more tuned into your body. This may sound a bit odd for a strategy, but how you carry and move your body is wired into an area of your brain in the frontier known as the prefrontal cortex. The cerebral cortex is responsible for higher level cognitive processes in the brain, such as thinking, language, decision making, and so on. And making simple adjustments with your body, especially when done consistently, can help to improve mood. And we're going to look at 3 of them right now. First, let's start with smiling. This one seems so simple, and it works. Smiling is universal. It doesn't matter who you are or where you live in the world. It feels better to smile. Science has known the benefits of smiling for some time. Dr. Fritz Strack and colleagues completed a pretty ingenious study in which they had study participants put pens in their mouths. Trust me, I'm going somewhere productive with this. In this study, half of the participants put a pen in their mouth in a manner that activated the smile muscles you use when smiling, while the other group put the pen in their mouths in a different way. Results showed that study participants that had their smile muscles activated by the pen rated cartoons as funnier when compared to other groups. So simply put, activating smile muscles makes people feel better. Even faking a smile, as phony as it might feel, can still help mood. For our second body-related strategy, we're going to take a look at adjusting the tone of your voice. When you think about this one, simply from a common sense perspective, it seems to make sense. If you talk in a low, uninspired, monotone fashion, it stands to reason that you probably won't feel very good. If you talk in a higher tone and show a little more excitement, it seems you should feel better. But to confirm, let's take a quick look at the science to see if there's some support for this theory. In 2015, Dr. Julian A. Couture and colleagues conducted a study in which they recorded the voices of their study participants. Afterwards, they manipulated the sounds of their voices to either sound happier, sadder, more agitated, and so on. And when the study participants' voices were played back for them, the tone of their voice was found to impact their mood. In other words, a happier tone of voice made people feel happier, while a sadder tone of voice made people feel sadder, and so on. So, remember to be aware of the tone of your voice, as it can impact your mood. And for a final body-related strategy, I want you to be aware of your posture when either sitting or standing. Take a moment here to picture the posture of someone who's struggling with mood. When I do this, I envision someone slouched over, body in a loose, kind of self-defeated stance. And for someone who's happy, I picture someone sitting or standing upright, shoulders back, confident, self-assured manner. But once again, let's take a quick peek at the science and see if posture can help to impact mood. In a 2015 study by Dr. Arun Nair and colleagues, they had study participants either sit up straight or slouch when completing a mock job interview. Results showed that when study participants were asked to sit up straight, they reported feeling more enthusiastic, excited, and strong. They also reported a better mood overall, as well as improved sleep. Not too shabby for just a simple adjustment to posture. So, to provide a quick recap, first, it's important to start with a plan for the day. When mood is low, it can be difficult to get moving, and having a plan will help to give you some direction. Second, be sure to take care of the basics. If you're a car, you need oil, gas, regular tune-ups to run well. As humans, we're far more complex, and we need lots of clean water, healthy food, and regular exercise to function well. For my third strategy for coping with depression, I encourage you to chunk time to get started. Low mood often leads to low motivation, which makes it even easier to feel overwhelmed. Committing to doing something small, even for a short period of time, can help you to get moving and create some positive momentum. Making simple adjustments with your body on a consistent basis, such as smiling more, increasing the tone of your voice, and maintaining good posture, can all help to improve mood. So I hope you found these strategies helpful for creating a daily plan to better manage feelings of depression. If you did, I encourage you to subscribe to this channel by clicking the subscribe button below. And if you ring the bell, you'll be notified the next time we release a video. And of course, feel free to like and share the video, as well as leave a comment. If you're experiencing challenges implementing the steps in this video, please contact us at Sullivan Associates Clinical Psychology. Thank you for watching, and be sure to watch part 2 of my step-by-step plan for managing depression, which will be released shortly.